Right after I was interrogated, they brought me to the hospital. They put me on an operating table to perform surgery. Operation was done. Then a nurse came in and said to me, "Don't worry, when you get home you can remove it or get a tattoo over it." I had no idea what she was talking about. I lifted my head from a pillow just to look at my stomach, and there it was. Glory to Russia. As far as I know, it was burned into my skin with a medical cautery tool. The surgeon did this to me, the same one who operated on me the very first time. Well, they'll get what's coming to them.
I just want to warn you right away. When you start asking questions and I start telling you about some horrifying things, I might smile. Don't pay attention to that. That's just the way I am.
Let's start with something nice. Welcome back. We are very happy that you're home. Tell us, how does it feel to be back?
Much better. Much better.
Do you remember the moment you returned to Ukraine?
Yes.
What was it like?
I had a million thoughts. Anxiety, couldn't believe it. And even now, it still feels unreal to be home. But slowly, it starts to sink in. I'm beginning to realize that I really am home. That there are normal people walking around and that it's not scary anymore. On February 24th, I was badly wounded and ended up being captured by Russians.
What exactly happened that day? Can you walk us through it?
It had started even earlier, though honestly, it never really stopped. The position was pure hell. There was nothing left there, not even tree stumps. We had just one dugout, and the entrance was covered across about 2 meters. That's it. We were holding on, staying there for a long time, defending the position until until they forced us out. We were getting hit with 2 or 3 assaults a day, pushing them back every time. At one point, I heard the sound of a grenade pin being pulled. It landed right next to me. I knew that was it. There was an explosion, then silence, and darkness. I came to, I don't know how much time had passed, but when I regained consciousness, they were already dragging me out of the dugout.
What was the first thing
I couldn't feel my legs. My first thought was that my legs had been blown off. I reached down, they were still there, but I couldn't feel them. They were kind of shocked. They said, "How did you survive? We checked, you had no pulse, you weren't breathing, nothing. Even your heart wasn't beating." Then they asked, "Can you walk?" I said, "No." So they put me on a stretcher and carried me over to their side.
Did you realize they weren't Ukrainians?
Yes.
Right away?
Yes.
What was the first thing that went through your mind?
That I was done for. While they were carrying me, I kept asking them, "Finish me off, just end it." But they didn't.
So you were ready to...
Yes.
What happened next?
They captured me, brought me to their position, to a basement. They stripped me down and examined me. But along the way, while they were moving me to the basement, I kept losing consciousness, just blacking out. So they stripped me, checked my wounds. I had a turn-up backside. My buttock was shredded. They didn't treat it or anything. Basically, all the scars I have now, it was all open wounds and bleeding back then. I guess I kept passing out because of the blood loss. They gave me an IV. I don't know what it was, but I felt a bit better. At least I stopped blacking out for a while. Then they dressed me again and took me to another basement. And there, they greeted me right away, just to make sure I wouldn't forget where I was.
And how exactly did they greet you?
Right from the start, 3 hits to the head with a filled 5-liter plastic bottle. My hands were tied, my eyes were covered. That was their welcome. I fell blacked out. They brought me to consciousness, sat me down, and started interrogating me. But I already understood that no matter what, they were going to try to break me hard. So I started telling them some kind of fairy tales, just making things up.
What did they want to hear from you at that moment?
Everything. Once they found out what kind of unit I was from, it really set them off. They were furious.
How long did it go on for?
I don't know, maybe from midnight, maybe from 1 in the morning until sunrise, they were torturing me. Well, interrogating me and torturing me in the process.
What did they do to you? Did they beat you?
They used electric shocks on my open wounds a couple of times, and I started blacking out again.
What happened next?
In the morning, they took me to a hospital. My eyes were still covered, hands tied. They carried me in like a dog and threw me onto another table. They stripped me, and then the doctors removed the tape from my eyes and untied my hands. They put a mask on me and I blacked out. They operated on me, then moved me on a stretcher to intensive care. I spent another 2 days there. They came to change my bandages, and then a nurse came in. I asked her for some water. I pointed towards it. She said, no, they didn't allow you to have any. I said, got it. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling. And then she said, don't worry. When you get home, you can cover it up with a tattoo or something. I had no idea what she was talking about. Absolutely none. The first time I saw it was a week later, when they transferred me to a regular hospital room. There were 2 guards with me. They came to change my bandages again. And that's when I finally managed to gather enough strength to lift my head off the pillow, just to see what was going on with my stomach. I looked, and I gasped. There it was. Glory to Russia, burned into my skin.
And what did you say then?
I said, you're all bastards. I'll shoot every one of you.
And what did they do?
Nothing. Just beat me up.
So you got beaten up on top of that?
Yeah, just a bit. While they were changing my bandages, one of them started poking me in my wounds with his fingers. It hurt like hell.
Do you know what they did to you exactly? Have you found out how they did it? Was it burned, cut, or...
From what I understand, it was done with a medical cautery tool. You know, the kind they use to seal intestines during surgery. They have instruments like that.
Do you know who did it? Was it the doctors or someone else?
It was the surgeon who operated on me, the very first one.
And what about this scar in the middle?
That's from the surgery.
They weren't exactly gentle with that either.
Yes. Well, at least they stitched me up properly. After the first surgery, the scar was already pretty big. And this time, the scar had only 12 stitches. The spacing between the stitches was like this. It took a long time to heal. As for the diagnosis, when I was transferred to hospital number 15, I asked them what exactly was wrong, but no one told me anything specific. They just said my rectum had been turned, and they had to remove part of it, the damaged section. They brought out the end of my intestine to the side, the colostomy. Told me my bladder was also ruptured, and they had sewn it up. Plus, my urethra had been severed. So they put in a catheter. I spent another 2.5 months lying there. I couldn't even get up, just didn't have the strength. Later, when I finally started getting up, the guards on the floor informed their superiors that Perverziv had started moving. A group of guys came to see me. Real lowlifes. supposedly for an interrogation. But it wasn't that. They just came to entertain themselves, to torture me for fun.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes,
Who were they? FSB?
I don't know who they were. They were all in balaclavas and no one ever introduces themselves there. They brought me into a room. One guy was sitting at a table typing on a laptop, while the other one was torturing me. He kept hitting me on the ears, punching the back of my head, using a stun gun on me. They asked me where my wound was. I pointed to my leg. So they ripped off the bandage and started electrocuting me right there, directly into the wound. That went on for about 40 minutes. They even rubbed my beard with a towel,
What does it mean?
like as if they were going to shave me. I had some stubble. One of them came up from behind with a rough towel and started rubbing my beard really hard. The skin just started peeling off.
Was this incident when they tortured you in the hospital a one-time thing, or did it happen again later?
There were more. That didn't happen to me. It happened to the other guys. For me, it was just that one time. But for the others, yeah, it was worse. Some of them even wet themselves from the pain. And yeah, they used the topic on them too.
What is a topic?
It's a terrifying thing. Luckily, I never experienced it myself, just heard about it from others. It's basically a regular old phone. 2 wires are connected to it, like clamps, and they can attach them to any part of your body. Then they crank the phone handle, lift the receiver, and there's this old Soviet-style rotary dial on it. The higher the number you dial, from 0 to 9, the stronger the electric current, and with each number, the power increases a lot.
Did they put you together with the guys who went through this kind of torture? Or were you kept separately? Did you have a chance to talk to each other at all?
No, not in a hospital.
Later then, in the prison colony,
You stay in a hospital only until you're barely able to stand on your feet. Once your wounds have healed a little, they transfer you to the colony. They won't keep you in the hospital for long. You're sent straight to the colony.
do you remember the day they told you that you'd be transferred to the colony?
Yes, they kept telling me I would be exchanged right from the hospital. But I knew that hardly ever happens. Maybe once in 1,000 cases. I knew exactly where I was going, to the colony. And honestly, I was glad. At least I wouldn't have to be in that madhouse anymore.
Unfortunately, we really can talk about the fact that Russian forces are systematically torturing Ukrainian prisoners of war. We have information about many such cases, as the Security Service of Ukraine is constantly documenting these incidents and collecting relevant evidence. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, the SSU has opened over 96,000 criminal proceedings under Article 438 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. These are war crimes.
The colony. I've heard, and I think everyone's heard, that the real horror starts right from the beginning, with what they call the reception. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I didn't go through the full reception like the guys who arrived a month before me. When they were transferring us to the colony, those who were escorting us were told in advance. There were 7 of us. We were all badly wounded. They were taking us knowing we were in bad shape. So they told the others not to go too hard on us, not to rough us too much. But still, as I was getting off the transport, I did get hit once across the back, straight from the bus. We had just arrived. The door opened and they said they'd be calling out names. When you hear yours, you say, "That's me," step out, hands behind your back, bend over low, and move as fast as you can. They had the guards standing in a sort of staggered formation, like a corridor. each one holding a baton. I got hit once across the back as I was running, and that was it for me. They didn't hit me anymore. But the guy behind me, Mishanya, he had serious leg injuries, full of shrapnel wounds, barely able to walk. And because he couldn't run, he was just slowly walking. They beat him down with their batons, pinned him to the ground right there on the asphalt. Completely pinned him down.
Did they beat him to death?
No, not to death. They just keep beating him until he collapsed. Same with the other guys. Some got hit once, some twice.
You said this was the light version of the reception. What happened a month earlier with the guys you mentioned?
Their reception was brutal. They were met by special forces. While we had regular guards, they had Spetsnaz handling them. It means they were going to beat you hard. With every single step you take, step, get hit. Step, get hit again. And you had to run from the bus to the building, maybe 10 to 20 meters. Then up the stairs to the second floor. After that, you strip down, they shave your head, then it's a shower and a shave. And with every move from one room to another, you get hit, either with a baton or with a stun gun. Then to the cell.
What did this cell look like? How many people were there? What were the conditions like?
They called it quarantine for those who just arrived in the colony. But in reality, it was the hole. We were stuck in the hole. The cell was meant for 6 people, but there were 9 of us, sometimes 11, even 12 crammed inside. The cell was small, really small. There was a table in the middle with 2 benches. About 2.5 meters of floor space covered with wooden planks. Just one section, the rest was bare concrete. There was no room to walk. Your legs would go numb. We spent 16 hours a day on our feet. Everyone's leg swelled up really fast.
And this was during winter too, right?
Yes, it was really cold. We had just taken a shower and they gave us only underwear and pants. That's it. Barefoot on the concrete floor, just in underwear and pants. No shirt, no socks, nothing. They gave us our clothes back on the 4th or 5th day. On the 4th day, we got our clothes. On the 5th, they gave us our shoes.
What was going on during those first few days, both in your head and around you?
I understood I was in the colony now. The guards would come in and ask us to recite the Russian national anthem. That was mandatory. Everywhere, in hospitals, in prisons, they made sure you knew the Russian anthem. Those who didn't know it, they got beaten severely. Beaten until they couldn't get up.
Did you learn it while you were in the hospital?
Yeah. I learned it in the hospital.
Based on the evidence collected by the SSU, we can see that most prisoners of war suffered similar injuries, broken limbs, noses, ribs, and many show signs of electric shocks, beatings with rubber batons, and other forms of abuse. The fact that these prisoners were held in different colonies but have the same types of injuries points to the systematic use of torture in Russian prisons. This also shows that such practices are widespread and sanctioned at the level of the Russian leadership.
Do you remember the day when... Of course you do. Tell us about that day when you found out you were going to be exchanged.
I found out on May 22nd. The supply guy told us straight up. A guard would come with a list and start reading out names. Those called were going to be exchanged. He said it openly. Later, they lined us up and started calling us out by name, one by one from the list. We ran out past the gates. They searched us thoroughly, and then we lined up again, waiting for the prison transport vans, the Voronki. Once the vans arrived, they loaded us in. And when everyone was finally inside, We drove in a convoy toward the Rostov airport. Nobody slept that night. We all knew it was an exchange. There were so many thoughts, so much anxiety, nerves, thinking, what's next? How will it happen? How do we step out? What will it even be like? We got there sometime afternoon, I think. We didn't really know the exact time. It was extremely hot outside. They didn't let us out to use the toilet or give us any water. We sat inside the transport van until it was completely dark, waiting on the airport grounds.
Inside a metal box, huh?
Yeah, 15 of us. When it got dark, they started loading us onto the plane. They opened the cage in the van, and we had to walk blindfolded through the transport van. There was a big drop between a ladder and the ground. The height was serious. We just walked up and fell forward. They caught us. Otherwise, we'd just smash ourselves on the ground. We landed around 10 or 11 p.m. and then we just waited until about 1 a.m. Just sitting there waiting. And time dragged so painfully slow. And then, when we saw the buses with Russians pulling in, that's when our hearts really started pounding. We fully crossed the border, and that's where they were waiting for us. You could finally smoke, drink some water, take photos. That's when it really started to feel easier, like a huge weight lifted. And as we drove further, there were people along the way welcoming us. Many were crying.
And you?
Yeah. A lot of people were trying to hold back their emotions, but they just couldn't. At that moment, it really hit deep.
What do you think helped you hold on, helped you survive through it all?
Because I promised my daughter that I'd come back. When I was leaving after my first injury, right after my leave, I was in uniform. She knew where I was going. She didn't want to let me go. And I promised her then that no matter what condition I'd be in, even without arms, without legs, I'd still come back. And every single day, I kept telling myself, I will come back.
How was the reunion with your daughter?
It was amazing. At first, she didn't recognize me, but I recognized her right away. She's grown so much. She looks older now. She's 9, but she looks even older. She just didn't recognize me at first. Not at all.
Did you lose a lot of weight?
I used to weigh 90 kilos. When I got back, I was 74. I lost 16 kilos.
How do you see your future now?
I want to keep serving. But it all depends on how the surgery goes and what the doctors say afterwards. Whether I'll be allowed to carry heavy loads, wear body armor, lift things like that. It all depends on that. If everything turns out okay, I'll go back. I'll go back.